resources. Resources. Nature has blessed us with many gifts. Water, air, soil, plants, wood, iron, copper, gold, silver, etc. Besides these, there are other things such as electricity, steel, means of transport, computers, etc. They are such sources which are not provided by nature but are made or transformed by man. All these things are called resources because these are used by us, and utility or usually makes an object or substances a resource. Thus we can say that anything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs or have some value, provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, can be termed as a resource. The naturally occurring substances that are considered valuable in their relatively unmodified natural form are called natural resources, such as river, sea, land, soil, etc. Various processes such as mining, petroleum extraction, fishing, hunting, and forestry helps in extracting and making these resources more useful. No doubt, natural resources play a vital role in the economic development of a country, but human resources are considered the most important resource of a nation, because it is the human resources which convert the natural resources into a more useful form. For example, a river is a natural endowment, but it's the human resource which transforms it into a more useful form, like producing electricity or using the river water for irrigation and transportation. Man has also transformed different minerals into various forms. For example, doors or utensils of aluminium metal, which we use these days, is not available in nature, but these are transformed from the bauxite, which is a natural ore. The process of transformation of things available in our environment involves an interdependent relationship between nature, human beings, and technology. Thus, human resources are the most important resource of a nation, because it is the human resource which converts natural resources into a more useful form. It is the quality of the human resource which is the best indicator of economic development. Classification of resources. Resources can be classified on different bases. For example, renewability, origin, utility, ownership, and state of development. Let's discuss these one by one. Click on the button to know more about that resource. Classification on the basis of renewability. On the basis of renewability, resources can be classified into renewable and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources are the natural resources which can be used again and again, or can be reproduced by physical, mechanical, and chemical processes. For example, solar energy, air, water, soil, etc. On the other hand, the natural resources which cannot be replaced at all or within a reasonable time are called non-renewable resources. For example, fossil fuels such as oil, gas, and coal. These are considered to be non-renewable resources because once they are used up, they are gone forever. Classification on the basis of origin. On the basis of origin, resources can be classified into biotic and abiotic. All those resources which are obtained from the biosphere and have life are known as biotic resources. For example, forests, livestock, etc. All those resources which are composed of non-living things are called abiotic resources. For example, land, water, iron, bauxite, etc. Classification on the basis of utility. On the basis of utility, resources are of two types: energy resources and raw material resources. All those resources which provide energy are known as energy resources: wood, coal, mineral oil, natural gas, wind, etc. are source of the energy resources. All those resources which can provide raw material to industries are known as raw material resources. For example, jute, rubber, copper, iron, wild animals, etc. On the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, the resources are classified into individual resources, community-owned resources, national resources, and international resources. Individual resources are resources which are owned by private individuals. For example, plot, field, house, car, book, etc. The resources which are accessible to all the members of the community are called community-owned resources. For example, village ponds, parks, playgrounds, etc. National resources are the resources which are under the control of the state or the union government, or the resources within the political boundaries of a nation are known as national resources. The resources which are owned and regulated by international institutions are called international resources. The oceanic resources beyond 200 kilometers of the exclusive economic zone belong to open ocean, and no individual country can utilize these without the concurrence of international institutions. On the basis of state of development. The state of development of a resource informs us whether the resource is potential resource, developed resource, stock, or reserve. Potential resources are resources which are found in a region but have not been utilized due to lack of capital or other reasons. For example, the western parts of India, particularly Rajasthan and Gujarat, have enormous potential to develop wind and solar energy. But so far, these have not been developed properly. Developed resources are resources which have been surveyed and their quality and quantity have been determined for utilization. The resource depends on technology and their level of feasibility. Stock are the materials in the environment which have the potential to satisfy the human needs, but could not be used as the human beings do not have the appropriate technology to convert them into a useful form. For example, water, H2O, is a compound of two inflammable gases, that is, hydrogen and oxygen. But we don't have the required technology to use them as a source of energy. Reserves are the subset of the stock, which can be put into use with the existing technology, but their use have been postponed keeping in mind the need for future generation. For example, India has sufficient amount of forests to fulfill the needs of the present generation, but they are being protected for the future generations. Problems due to overutilization of a resource. Resources are vital for human development and to maintain the quality of life. Though resources are a gift of nature, but increased population results in overutilization of resources, and this has led to many problems. With the growth of human population, there is an increasing need for larger amounts of water, food, and land, etc. Some of the problems due to overutilization of resources are depletion of resources. Overutilization has led to depletion of resources. For example, overutilization of petroleum products has led to a situation where most of the countries of the world are facing energy crisis. Concentration of resources. This has divided the society into haves and have-nots, and rich and the poor. Global ecological crisis. Overutilization of resources has led to the global ecological crisis, such as global warming, depletion of the ozone layer, pollution, and land degradation. Resource planning. Resource planning is a technique or skill of proper or judicious use of resources. Before we discuss about the resource planning, it is important to know why we need that. We need resource planning because most of the resources are limited in supply. Most of the resources are unevenly distributed. Overutilization of resources may lead to the pollution of the environment. There is need to plan human resources because only then we would be able to develop our natural resources. Planning of resources is also required for self-dependency. Resource planning is essential for sustainable development. Distribution of resources in India. Natural resources in India are unevenly distributed. There are some regions which can be self-sufficient in terms of the availability of resources, and there are some regions which have acute shortage of some vital resources. For example, the states of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Madhya Pradesh are rich in minerals, especially coal and iron ore deposits. Arunachal Pradesh has abundance of water resources but lacks in infrastructural development. The state of Rajasthan is very well endowed with solar and wind energy but lacks in water resources. The cold desert areas of Ladakh is relatively isolated from the rest of the country due to the lack of means of transportation and communication. Sustainable development. Resource use and sustainable development. Sustainable development means development should take place without damaging the environment, and development in the present should not compromise with the needs of the future generations. Resources vary among different regions and countries. Developed countries like USA, Japan, etc. use more resources than developing countries like Sri Lanka, India, etc. With economic development, the demand for resources increases. The rising demand for various resources has caused degradation or depletion of many valuable resources. For example, overuse of soil has caused infertility of many areas. Similarly, widespread deforestation and killing of birds and animals have endangered, and some of them have become extinct. The quality of air, water, and land resources has also been affected badly due to misuse or overuse of resources. If sincere attempts are not made by every individual to stop the misuse of these resources, all of them cannot last long. For sustainable development, our duty is to ensure that all uses of renewable resources are sustainable. The diversity of life on the earth is conserved. The damage to the natural system is minimized.